Paul Callan is a CNN legal analyst and former New York City prosecutor. He joins me now from New Jersey. Great to have you with us.
Nice being with you, Rosemary.
So in just a few hours from now, a New York federal judge will hear arguments on a sexual assault case against Prince Andrew. His lawyers claiming a 2009 agreement between his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, and the late sex offender, Jeffrey Epstein, protects the prince from her lawsuit because it violates the settlement in which she agreed to a general release of claims against Epstein and others. Now, that agreement was unsealed Monday, so how enforceable is it, do you think, and how do you see this playing out?
Rosemary, this is a very interesting and complex situation that we often see in civil lawsuits for money damages like this, where there are lots of potential defendants. And what Prince Andrew's lawyers are saying is that when Virginia Giuffre settled this case for $500,000, she agreed that she wouldn't bring a case against anybody else. Now, that agreement is outlined in a very lengthy general release that is customarily filed with respect to civil lawsuits like this. And these, I have to tell you, these agreements are usually upheld by U.S. courts.
But in this situation, it's an agreement that would protect the prince against an illegal act. How does that generally stand?
The illegality of the act probably would not necessarily be a factor in the case, because a lot of times what gets resolved in a civil case involves illegal acts. And sometimes, but when you settle the case, you agree that you're not going to continue the lawsuit, which is all that the settlement means. You can be prosecuted for the criminal act. This gives no protection to the prince against being charged with a crime if the statute of limitations is valid. This just simply says, because the plaintiff, Virginia Giuffre, settled for $500,000 and agreed not to sue anybody else, that she has to be held to that agreement. At least that's what the plaintiffs in the case and the defense in the case are arguing before the court tomorrow, probably.
So you feel that this lawsuit, her lawsuit, could very well be thrown out as a consequence of this agreement?
Well, I think there is at least some probability that that could happen. And the reason I say that is because in most lawsuits in the United States where there are multiple defendants, agreements like this are quite customary, because if you settle with one defendant for a lot of money, the fear is that you might turn around and sue other defendants and they would bring you back into the lawsuit as a co-conspirator. So you would have paid a lot of money, or more likely your insurance company would have paid a lot of money, and yet you're still involved in the lawsuit. So the courts will generally uphold agreements like this that, hey, you've agreed not to sue anybody else, and they won't throw it out. Now, a strong argument is being made by Virginia Giuffre's very capable attorney, David Boies. He says, no, that agreement and that approach doesn't apply here because Prince Andrew never could have been a part of the Florida lawsuit that was settled. And so this agreement should not apply to Prince Andrew. And he puts a pretty strong argument on the table as well. So I think this is a close call by the judge. And it's a tough one to predict.
Oh, interesting. Also, I did want to ask you this, because given Prince Andrew's lawyers are using this agreement to protect him from Giuffre's lawsuit, are they in essence admitting his guilt here? And how vulnerable would that make the prince as a consequence?
Well, that's a very interesting observation, Rosemary. They, I'm sure, are very careful when they present their arguments, that they're just saying that if hypothetically the plaintiff was able to prove something, she couldn't collect her money because she previously agreed she wouldn't sue anybody else. So you watch these lawyers, they're always going to be saying alleged and hypothetically. You'll never see them actually admitting that Prince Andrew did anything of a sexual nature with Giuffre. And as a matter of fact, he, of course, has publicly denied not only doing anything sexually with her, but he's even said the pictures of him with his arm around her are probably doctored. They're probably fake pictures. He doesn't even agree that he's ever met her.
Paul Callan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rosemary.